All right, hey everyone. This is Anthony with Interviews with Everyday People. We're at Culture2Culture for the third time now. I don't remember which one we're at. They're all numbered. I have to find that out. We'll put that in the video.
I think it's 30.
30 or 31. It's up in the 30s. They've been doing it for a little while now. So we're actually here. If you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Kim Genzie.
Okay. Are you from the Pottsville area?
Originally Allentown.
The Allentown. Okay, so
but I live in Pottsville.
So you live in Pottsville now. Awesome. And what brings you to Culture2Culture?
Because my daughter died from a heroin overdose.
Mm-hmm. Now I was here the first night you were here, and it was your first time, and you just kind of came up, and were you invited by someone here?
No, I just saw it on Facebook and came.
Awesome. And you were it was kind of a fresh thing still for you, the loss of your daughter, and you kind of let go, you know what I mean? And this place showed that it cares, and everyone comforted you and made sure you were okay, and it's kind of been a nice little way of mending and going through the grieving process and not being alone by coming to a place like this. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about your daughter.
My daughter's name is Shira Jacqueline. Mm-hmm. She was 30, and she put that needle in her arm.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the good first. So what type of person was she?
She had hair down to her butt. She could sing. She had poetry. She was
very
so
creative and talented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very creative and talented. Mm-hmm. And she got on heroin.
Now, was she struggling with anything else? Maybe like,
the
depression,
loss of her children.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why she went to heroin. And I got the phone call one day, or not a phone call. The police showed up at my door at 4:30 in the morning and said, "Your daughter's brain dead in Delaware." I said, "Are you sure it's her?" They said, "Yes." It's July 5th will be 10 months. And it hurts. Opiate addiction. She got a bad batch of heroin with fentanyl in it. Mm-hmm. And it killed her. Just like that. Gone. Gone.
Mm-hmm. How long was she using?
Less than a year. Less than a year.
And so she was living in Delaware at the time?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, do you know what the reason she turned to that, or was it something she struggled with for a while and she kind of turned to that?
Right. She didn't have her kids.
Mm-hmm.
She loved her babies. She didn't have her kids. She would go to rave concerts and Molly's and ecstasy, and I said, "No, don't do that. Don't, because it's bad."
Mm-hmm. So she experimented with other drugs as well. Now, when you said she lost her kids, if you don't mind me asking, what?
Because she wasn't being responsible.
Okay.
She had her own demons.
Mm-hmm.
And her demons won.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason I'm here right now, talking to you right now, is I don't want another mom or dad to feel the way I do. Because it's not cool. It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pick up her pieces because she's dead. Death is final. Save your children. Save yourself. Don't put that heroin in your arm. It's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kills people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't kill the person. It destroys the entire family.
And friends. Family, friends. Anyone who cares about you. Yeah.
Her father is dying in a hospital right now. he's already told me when I had to give him, call her father and say, Willie, Shira's gone. She's dead. He slept on the basement floor, the cold macadam, losing it. Just don't do this stuff. Just don't, because it's not worth it.
You have to bring it a little closer because the music's up now.
It's not worth it. Anybody out there, please don't do this drug. It will destroy you and your family.
I do appreciate you telling your story, and hopefully people do listen and take something from that. Okay, thank you.
And I'm not trying to. It's just hard. People, listen, please. This epidemic is destroying people.
Destroying the country.
Don't believe your drug dealer. He wants to kill you. He really wants to kill you. He doesn't care. It's all about money. It's all about money. And listen to that very loud and clear, because they really don't care about you. They just want to put that money in their pocket.
So that's gonna do it for us. Thank you so much for sitting down and telling your story. And I the grieving process is not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time, and it may not. It may, you know what I mean. Like, but the best thing you could do is definitely, make her proud in her memory, and not, and help people by doing what you're doing and trying to be doing the right thing. There's an amazing program that we talked about before off camera called Safer Streets Tamaqua, and it's the same thing. It's a set of parents who lost their daughter the same way, and they turned around and they made an organization about it. They turned around and they run an event all the time, and they made it a program where they can help people get off heroin and get off drugs and alcohol and really make a positive impact in the community. You know what I mean? So they took the grieving process and turned around and made it into something positive for the community.
And that's exactly what I'm doing too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm doing. That's why I come to Conversation Cafe, because being at Conversation Cafe is better than being in a bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm sorry that I was raw.
No, absolutely. Well, you can only get raw with a conversation like that. You can't. There's no way to sugarcoat it. You gotta talk about it, and it is a thing. We talked about it before. I hate. It sucks logging on the social media every day and you're losing somebody else every other week because this epidemic has taken over our country. And hopefully it does make a change, and hopefully the right people make the right steps and get help and educate themselves that this is a serious thing and you can't be doing this. You know what I mean? Because it's a two-way street. You gotta educate the people, and you also have to help the people get off it now. But thank you so much for telling your story.
Thank you.
And not a problem.
Thank you.
I hope it helped you get some stuff off your chest.
It did.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
100%. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
God bless you.
Yep.
God bless you.
All right, we're back with a part two here live at Conversation Cafe in Pottsville. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Bob.
Bob. Now, you just went up and talked a little bit about a little past and some of your story.
Yeah.
What is it you want to share with us today? Do you want to talk about the topic? Or you have something you want to share?
I think I shared a pretty good bit of how this transpired. I don't think you can. I know the topic for today has a lot to do with gateway drugs. And I believe someone, when they began this whole show tonight, started to give different things about environment, about peer pressure, about this and about that. And I think there's a lot of, the answer might be D or E, all of the above, because at least it was for me.
It's a little bit of each.
It was. It certainly was.
And I was kind of talking about in there too. I think when people don't want to take responsibility for something, my generation's biggest thing was let's blame music. Let's blame media. Let's blame video games. Kids are violent because they're playing video games.
Right.
No, they're not violent because they're playing video games. They're violent because maybe you as a parent are just giving them video games, and that's what's raising them. Right. At some point, people have to take responsibility for their own actions, and people have to take responsibility in the education process. So and I'm also kind of maybe a topic for another day, but it depends on I believe the type of discipline you receive too. For me personally, I've had friends who had parents who if they got out of line, they would get beat, and they would get. I didn't really. I mean, maybe once in a while when it got really bad, but for the most part, I was able to have a conversation with my parents, and I think if I were to make a mistake, I would say, "Hey, Dad, our mom, I'm going through something. Can we sit down and talk about it?" And I think it made me make better choices because I didn't say, "Well, I already messed up. If I go home and tell them, they're gonna beat me." You know, and I think that can fall into a trap as well. So there's a lot of different things which can turn people into a life of alcohol or drugs and stuff like that.
And one of the things that I can certainly testify to is generational differences, because as you know, growing up in an era with an absence of social media, an absence of video games, an absence of, we were lucky to have a television.
Yeah.
And now parents seem content for a long time to realize and understand that if their children are behind locked doors, they're safe. Well, that thing was blown out of the water with the very tragic incident that happened at Columbine, because these people, Klebold and Harris, came from very professional families who stayed in the house most of the time, but what they were doing was they were, reading things like Anarchist Cookbook and stuff like that, and nobody really knew what was going on. So they were sort of parenting themselves, they were raising themselves. They became what I think the buzzword at that point still continues was the word parentified.
Yeah.
So they had to do a lot of their own, and this not only with them, but I mean this just got more and more and more and more to the point where social media, people get everything off of it. They get their news off of it. They believe everything they read off of it. And for me to look back with sort of a, much more years in my life than a lot of these people, and look at that, and it's kind of strange to realize that, but there are some things, some common denominators that remain the same. And with gateway drug or any type of choice or anything like that, it's all up to the individual. And you could get pushed, you could get, you must feel that you're going to be a part of a certain clique if you don't do this, if you don't do that.
I think peer pressure is just as on top of everything as it all.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone has experienced high school, and everyone's experienced trying to fit in. And once again, it's not because you smoke pot and now the next step is you want to do coke, and then from coke you want to do. It's literally you're at a party and people are like, oh, you don't do coke, you're this or that,
right.
And you're like, oh, I guess I'll try it.
Yeah.
And then you do it and you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then you do it again, and then you do just like if when you're underage drinking and you become like alcoholism is like, hey, I'm doing it every weekend. Your body builds up a tolerance, and then you don't realize that you're actually becoming dependent on it. You're
right.
not. Your goal isn't to become addicted.
Right.
You're just trying to fit in and fit in that social status, and then it becomes, hey, this is something I can do,
right.
And then it turns. You just spiral. You know what I mean?
And we're faced with such a plethora of people that are addicted right now. Personally, I believe that jail is not a place for so-called treatment. It's a place where you will be humbled, and if you are a large-scale dealer, you certainly need to be there. But it's not a treatment facility, and the treatment facilities that are covered by our insurance are only covered for a limited amount of time, and it's a very, very, very slippery slope.
Yeah.
So this problem is not going to go away. If anything, through my eyes, I've seen it just get worse, and with the compartmentalization of different agencies. Well, we do this and we do that and we do this and we do that. So you might end up with one person who has a problem working with 6 different agencies, and because of certain laws, each agent, none of the agencies know really what's going on with the person. Because there's so many people involved. So somewhere there's an answer. I believe the person has to turn inward, cry out really for help and be humbled, and cry for God's help. Because if that doesn't happen, at least I could speak for myself and probably for others. The situation is most likely going to continue.
Yeah, and it really comes down to how you were saying. You have to want to change, and you have to want to make that change.
Oh yeah,
it's not going to happen because someone's going to come and say, "Hey, Tony, I understand you're going through something. Let's talk about it. Let's get you through it. It might, but I'm probably realistically the person's going to get defensive and say, "You think I have a problem?"
Right.
Like it really. You have to. How you said, you have to look inward. Like,
Yeah.
when I was going through my depression and bad thoughts, no one can tell me, hey, just get better. You gotta,
Right.
you have to kind of work through it. You have to either get help if you're at a certain point, but you have to start being real with yourself and say, how can I go ahead and make this change?
And for a lot of people, and I include myself in this group, I want to defer to the late great Beatles guitar player George Harrison, who people really, didn't know how much of a spiritual person he was.
He was amazing.
They felt that when he got involved very deeply after the Beatles had broken up. Well, what does it matter what he says or does? He's made $150 million, so he could say, no, it's not true, because back in the early '60s, I remember reading quotes of him saying that it doesn't matter who we are, where we are, or what time it is when we cry out for God, just as long as we cry out.
Yeah.
And
we kind of have
do
that. We kind of have that happening, in the last couple months, where people think if you're a celebrity and you say, "Hey, let's make a change," they think, "Oh, you're a celebrity. You make too much money. Who are you to tell us what to do?" Right. Especially if they're athletes. Mm-hmm. If an athlete makes a stand and says, "Hey, there's a problem here. Mm-hmm. There's something going on that you may not understand. Let's talk about it." And people say, "Go catch a ball. Who are you to tell us?" and that's kind of what things like people say, "Oh, things were different back in the day." Maybe with the technology, things were different.
That's it.
But people repeat themselves.
Oh, sure.
History repeats itself. Trends happen again, and everything just kind of keeps recycling, because we're at the end of the day we're still human. We're still figuring ourselves out as humans. Like, we don't even know the end process or how things work. You know what I mean?
And when you scratch that surface, regardless of whether it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or where we're at right now, it's the same thing.
Yeah, the general public acts the same exact
thing.
way. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. I agree. So you were saying you've had some demons yourself. What are some of the things you went through?
Well, what I was doing in my job, which I don't really want to talk about, what I had to do, but there were some things that I had witnessed and that I was involved in that created a lot of difficulty in trying to come to some semblance of reality with it. And I tried to bury that the wrong way, by hiding it and not by really giving it up and dealing with it. So until it took a long time for that to come to fruition, and it's a process. It doesn't just say, well, you can have X amount of days and it's going to work, or in 1 month or in 1 year I'll look back on this and it'll all be a joke. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, there's some jobs that that you experience things or see things or go through things, and it can mentally break you. Right. I grew up in a house where it was firefighters, right. And there's some calls that I had some people went through, and they came back from that call and they were never the same person.
Of course
again.
not. Of course not.
And the same thing, they came back to the firehouse and they said, "Get me a shot and get me a beer."
Right.
And they didn't go and get the proper, because how we talk about a big thing now in today's time is the male toxicity, or however they say it, but as males, we tend to say, well, I'm not going to talk about my issues. You're kind of bred not to.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they just kind of bury it, and their way of burying it is, I'll do it the way my grandfather did, and his grandfather before him. We'll pick up a bottle.
Right.
And then you spiral.
I've seen the shirt, and I'm sure everyone has. Real men pray. Real men also cry.
100%.
And to try to. Maybe not everybody, because it may not be in everybody's. It may not be the way they're wired, but to try to deny that and negate it when you want to do it, or if you feel like you need to do it, boy oh boy, are you ever burying hurt.
Yeah.
You're just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. Instead of you need to hit that bottom, and anymore, a lot of times when you hit that bottom, there's always a trap door, and when the trap door opens, you end up falling on a padded mattress. What you really need to do to get to the reality is when that trapdoor opens, you need to fall on a bunch of razor blades and nails, so you could really wake up and say, okay, I can't get any worse than this. I can't get any better. I've got to. There's only one way out.
Yeah.
One way up, and it's got to be that way. So let's hope we can all
Yeah.
take something from that, and we can all, move ahead. And it's certainly not an easy process, but
what would your advice be to people? Because you said you had your own demons, and you turned to religion.
I've always been a religious person. I think what happened is that, like, I don't want to say like everybody, but like a lot of people that I knew, and maybe a lot of people in general, it sort of takes a little bit of a back seat because there's so many other things going on. I hate, you're kind of living more in the flesh than you are in the word.
Yep.
And, I advise anybody at any age to just stay focused and stay connected to that, because, you don't have to go to a certain church, a certain this, a certain that. You need to stay grounded in liturgy and Bible, and that's just my personal feeling. I'm not telling people what they have to do. Believe me, I just think that when you read that, and when you read the interpretations of people that, respected writers, I'm a big fan of Thomas Merton, the late Roman Catholic Trappist monk. And he wrote so much stuff, and it's very difficult to understand a lot of his things. It's slow reads, but so many people interpret things, and just, you stay focused, keep reading, because the more you read of those things, don't cast them aside. Stay with them, because what I see is that with a lot of people, they may be good people, but their moral compass is so off.
Yes, you have to have and to me, I mean, I have some issues, and some, like, not issues, but me and religion aren't the best of friends.
Right.
I mean, I walk the path. I've done it a couple times, and I've always kind of been let down.
Right.
But one thing about you that I give you a lot of respect for, I think a lot of people, when they get in the Word, they kind of close themselves up a little bit. I don't see that with you. Because last week we were here, and there was a gentleman who got on stage, and he struggled with heroin addiction.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And he turned around and said, what helped me is I met Buddhist monks.
Right.
And the Buddhist way of teaching gave him a structure,
Absolutely.
gave him some type of faith, gave him something to believe in, something that was higher than himself. And it helped him. And you went up as a Christian and said, with knowledge of some of the things that he was talking about with the Buddhists, like, so that's a really cool thing that you did. And you kind of broke a stereotype that I normally see with a lot of certain people with religions, where you said, hey, I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I accepted him as my Savior, but I'm glad that you took a step in some type of higher being and higher power than to help yourself.
I think we have to understand, well, it was coincidental, because when that gentleman had a great testimony last week. I forgot his name, but
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was very good. And it just so happens that I'm still plowing through this book that Thomas Merton wrote, and he was an American, like I said, he was an American Trappist monk, but he was able to marry the American Christian doctrine, Catholic doctrine, and be influenced by people like Suzuki, who was a strong advocate of Buddhism, and he found a lot of commonality in that. If you would tell that to certain people, they would furl their eyebrow. They would look at you like, no, it doesn't work that way. Well, look at wherever you grow up in whatever part of the world, you know God as you know God. If you grew up in this part or that part, or pick any place on a map, just throw a dart, and it doesn't matter where it is. You're going to have a perception of what you feel and identify as who God is, and what
who's
God
your higher
is.
power.
Yeah, yes, and that's your higher. And please go that direction, because it's my belief that that's the only way that you're going to find true happiness.
For me personally, I turn to, I don't know if it's a certain type of religion or a certain type of, but it's more of a way of thinking. I have the book The Secret, where it's kind of like, just, you're not so much like there is something out there, but you're more or less just trying to, like, I live a very, I guess you would say, my mentality and the way I think and the way I do things is still very Christian.
Right.
I treat others how I want to be treated.
Sure.
I won't go out of my way to do harm to someone else.
Sure.
I respect other people and their beliefs and their way of doing things and their belief. If you tell me something and I don't agree with what you say, I will meet you in the middle and have a genuine conversation. I think if more people just kind of just have that respect for one another and be able to sit down. We can be completely polar opposites on many different things when it comes, race, religion, political beliefs, political parties. But at the end of the day, people are gonna have their own way of thinking, and you're never gonna change certain people. But people need to realize that when you boil us all down at the end of the day, we're all the same thing, and we all want the same thing at the end of the day.
It's funny that you mentioned the political thing because I know we don't want to get in the weeds here with that discussion, but I actually had some hope when that very, very, very tragic incident occurred last year when Mr. Scalise was injured during practicing for that softball game with the Congress, and both parties reached across the aisle for 48 hours, and they were, there was prayer, there was thought, because he was in a bad place. And they were able to show that. Does it take something like that for people to work together? Well, it did. And then 48 hours later, everybody was hating on each other
Went right back to hell again.
It just went right back to hell again, yeah.
Well, my personal thing that I think that recently happened that was really eye-opening for me was I like Jon Stewart a lot. I think Jon Stewart totes a line. He doesn't pick so far one side or the other.
Right.
He just wants people to have a chance. And when he went in there and he kind of said, like our 9/11 victims.
Oh, that was great. I saw that.
You know what I mean?
I saw that.
Unanimous vote.
Yep.
Both sides of the part. Like, listen, someone needs to go in there with a level-headed thing and just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because all we're seeing, and it's kind of a media thing where we're just getting the very, very far left or the very, very far right.
Right.
And they're not the representation of our country.
No.
But the more people suck into those cultures and those beliefs, you're just dividing more.
Right.
And nothing ever gets done. It's to me, it's literally just gang warfare. You literally have two gangs, but you call them political parties, and they're literally working just to spite the other one instead of coming to common ground and making us a better country and a better life and better way of living.
And I want to go on record as saying, God bless all our veterans. My father, God rest his soul, was wounded twice in World War II, once on D-Day and once on another time. Getting back to what you were saying about Jon Stewart, our first responders in all the lives that were lost in Afghanistan and in Iraq, it's through that, and we still have warriors over there. Our New York City department and Jersey and whoever else responded. I mean, I was up there a month after it happened. And I remember 4 times since it happened, but a month after it did happen, just to pray and bear witness to what had gone down.
And it was one of the first times in my life where it didn't matter if you were white, if you were black, if you were Hispanic, if you were Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. Everyone said, you know what, let's come together and let's figure this out.
Oh, sure.
And it sucks that it takes such a huge, devastating thing for people to see that.
Absolutely, yeah. And those are our first responders right there. Those are our first casualties of that war. And those people deserve everything that we can give them.
Yeah.
That they really do. And it could bring me to tears if I keep thinking about it right now,
Yeah.
But, so, this was a great interview. I mean, I enjoyed going around.
Thank you so much. Yeah, anytime, man. I'll be here once a month. And
all right.
I mean, I'm open to talk about any topic.
Okay.
We'll come down because I'm sure you'll educate me on some things, and we can bounce some things off each other. But
Okay.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
God bless, man.
You
Take
too.
care. Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.